Well, I feel sorry for this guy. This was all going on in the middle of the night, under and beside his bed.
Under
So,
and beside. I don't know which one's worse. I have this very vivid image of like the lights of coming in from the hallway and it's dark in the ward and you're just like on all fours with doctors around you and you're like, there's no God.
yeah, I think probably one of my most attractive moments, I
I'm
think.
not gonna lie, I'm slightly horny now.
As you should be.
As you all should be, dear listeners.
Well, I mean, someone on all fours crawling around your bed in the middle of the night, what's not sexy about that?
Whoa. And I would like enough morphine to kill me, please. Do you think you're still an angry asshole, Lewis?
Or just an asshole?
Well, I wouldn't call a 9-year-old an asshole because
I
that would be
would.
mean. You would, but you're a jerk, asshole.
Dave, I think one of your risky ones is he does a whole set about being one of the lucky ones with cerebral palsy because he's got good hand-to-dick coordination. And, God has a sense of humour. He can't feed himself, but he can service himself. And it goes on, like, you know, he gets his hand and he's got to wait for a seizure. No, he's got to wait for a twitch and he wishes, it's the only time he ever wishes for a seizure.
I might need an extra 5 minutes with this patient.
So I sat here watching your child watch TV, which felt wrong. So then I turned my camera off, which felt even wronger because then he couldn't see me. And then you came in after maybe 5 minutes of me just watching your child. And I was like, oh, please, Steve, please have trousers on. So in the last sort of week, that's basically 3 seizures, 2 lots of drugs and a broken wrist.
Agitation or restlessness, insomnia, confusion, rapid heart rate and high blood pressure, dilated pupils, loss of muscle coordination, high blood pressure, and muscle rigidity.
I could just kill myself, and that there is an end. There's a path that's not this all the fucking time.
Yeah. It's kind of like a control thing.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's like, you know, everything else is out of our hands. We can do that.
Yeah.
Fuck you all. That will prove you I am capable. I can do stuff. I'm really successful at unaliving myself.
Can you imagine though if you then failed to commit suicide, like if you fucked it up?
Do you know that has been in my like little fantasies of doing the whole this is enough kind of thing, is if you failed, then you are then in the system as that person. And you will never get taken seriously for anything else. Like you go to the doctor for whatever, or if I get taken for seizures, it's like first thing on your record is try to do that.
It wasn't hugely high doses, but I remember everything being very flat. That point where you think you're about to be executed, like that's a fucking torture technique, mock execution, you know? Like that's a legitimate psychological scar that you still bear. Like just the idea that someone is going to kill me is so foreign to most people, unless I guess you live in Ukraine, sorry. But like, yeah, that's such a that's a big lump. That's a big lump
and it was very, very clear. It wasn't like, oh, I wonder if they're going to. That was the reason I was there. That's the reason why they were shouting as such at me to kneel down, and they were all behind me, and I had these handcuffs on because obviously that was the only reason.
Yeah, room 6 is the execution room. Duh. A big fuzzy snuggly blanket made of love and moonbeams.
Next time we're in your guys' neck of the woods, we should rent 3 motorized wheelchairs and we can just all run around playing cerebral palsy. It'll be hilarious.
We've only got one motorised, but we've got a couple of manuals, so just get
Let's go see how much free stuff we can get.
See, things if you've got the manual ones, and David, if you've got the electric one, then you're definitely going to be king of the spazzes if you can outrace it.
He said he definitely wants to hire a couple more motorised chairs for when you come. I'll be everyone's mum. And we'll do
it. You can be the carer for all of us.
Yay, live the dream. I knew you always wanted more disabled kids. I could tell from the way you look.
Yeah, because those other ones turned out to be able-bodied.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I quite like the first one. Boring.
That what's just happened is conversation that isn't allowed publicly. Is
Yeah.
that when Rachel fell in love with you?
Yes, when I could not string a sentence together coherently.
When you're making jokes with people about, what's appropriate and where the line is and making them laugh and stuff, I think once somebody else has had the level of life alteringness that you've also gone through, and knows that kind of separation, I guess, then you're like, oh no, we're in the club, we're in the same gang, we can talk absolute drivel.
Yeah.
And-
I mean, that's
and
how
I know you laugh.
Steve and I, that's how we kind of became friends, is when we realized, you're broken as well. We can make those jokes, and like, you get it. You don't know each other's specific situations, but you get it. You get those limitations, and also what it doesn't limit, that other people put those limits on you.
I find it really funny when people are like, do you want a tramadol?
Oh, what? Tea? Bye. Oh, he's got a tip for you. He's got a tip for you. Buy a wheelchair if you don't have one. Go out for a few laughs. Yeah, do that. See what happens.
Maybe we should get an 8-ball and some nice brandy and have a night in.
I take lamotrigine and levetiracetam.
I'm just going to have to interrupt and say
Mhm.
both of those sound like Harry Potter spells.
I know, I'm currently floating off the sofa. So this mattress is on the floor, and they stood me next to it, and the doctor said, put one knee down. And I remember I put both knees down, and he shouted, I said one knee. And again, this may have been my brain. He may have just said kneel down, but I thought they were going to execute me, because I've got my hands behind my back, and they're telling me to kneel down in this dark room on the floor. And I honestly thought I was going to get shot in the back of the head. So I'm begging forgiveness, apologizing for my awful behavior. And they put a hand on my head and pushed me forward till I was lying sort of face first on this mattress with my hands handcuffed behind my back, and told me basically to stay there and behave until the morning. In which I was, like I say, very apologetic. I was crying at this point, and I lay there. And I remember a nurse coming in, a nice nurse, saying, do you want a blanket? And crying very loudly, I don't deserve a blanket. Because I was saying, poor me. I'd realised the error of my ways. And
God is real. Morality exists.
I've let society down with my terrible behaviour. Only good people are rewarded with blankets. That's the only reason I've got rugs in my lounge, is to hide all the bloodstains on the floor from seizure injuries, not from all the murders. I saved them for the garage, where it's easier to clean up. There's one that I think I even now it seems really real, that there was 2 nurses, and they'd come into my room in the night, and they were stealing my things, and I was getting really angry that they were stealing from me. And I remember trying to pry the nurse's hand open, and she was saying to the other, like, kind of laughing, like, she's really hurting me, because I was trying to pry her fingers. But that made it even more realistic that she obviously had something of mine in her hand. That's why she was trying to stop me. And I remember getting really aggro about this. And
So were the nurses real? Or did you? You were hallucinating. They were hallucinating people, but then you were also kind of attributing real people to these things that you'd hallucinated. Is that what's happening?
Yeah. I mean, looking back, it seems like, even now, I think, yes, there were people in my room, and yes, they were stealing, because there was no other reason for them to be in there. But then my logical brain said, why would they be coming into my room and stealing? And I've got no one else to verify that they existed in the first place. As I tried to sit up and get out of the chair and bust out of the head strap like a lunatic. And I mean, I tend to bleed on things. I tend to pee on things. I tend to drool on things. I'm a bit like a hurt child.
Like a toddler.
Have the emotional range of a toddler.
I don't want your shit
I want your stuff.
You can have the house. Steve, you can't have my house.
Well, fine, then you don't get to die, and you have to do this podcast until you're 80.
But you would be living, you wouldn't be working, but you'd be living as the crew. So in crew quarters, you'd be eating crew meals. So it's not a cruise, you just happen to be on a ship.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that could be an option because that's not flash, that's not fancy. And they do, you know, sort of all around the world, these cargo ships. But the price of it was more than going on a cruise.
Really?
Yeah.
So traveling on a cargo ship would be more rubbish?
Yeah, it wouldn't be as much fun in the usual sense, but it'd be kind of cool, I think, if you're not actually working. I mean, like you could probably say, "Hey, can I help scrub the decks?" I don't know what they do on cargo ships. I think I'm thinking pirates, but I think it could be an interesting thing to see. And the reason they could tell that I was going a bit crazy was the nurse came into the room and I was kneeling on the bed on all fours, staring at the wall like a startled deer.
I mentioned it to my pain nurse, and I was like, "So I've been reading a lot about ketamine infusions." She was like, "No."
When you get accused of being a drug seeker and then you go and ask him for ketamine,
She was like, "That's like rock stars and dying."
things are fluffy and things are sleepy, and I'm quite happy to wander around.
Bing, 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 bing.